pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Welcome to the village board meeting of November 29th. Roll call. Caperas.
Here.
Possession.
Here.
Giannotti.
Here.
Thierry.
Here.
Stacy. Kraus.
Here.
In your packet, you have the minutes of the last meeting. If there are no changes, can we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Roll call. Caperas.
Yes.
Possession.
Yes.
Giannotti.
Yes.
Thierry.
Yes.
Kraus.
Yes.
There is no clerk's report for tonight. Does anyone in the audience wish to address the board? All right, under my report, we're going to consider a resolution adopting a strategic plan of the village board for the years 2022 through 2025. The resolution does not have to be voted on tonight, but can be discussed if any changes need to be made, and it could be put on next meeting's agenda. We've spent a lot of time discussing this. If anybody has any changes, we'd be happy to continue to discuss that. Otherwise, if somebody wants to make a motion to adopt that resolution.
So moved.
All right, and that is resolution number 2021-14.
I make a motion to adopt resolution 2021-14, adopting a strategic plan for the village board for the years 2022 through 2025.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion?
Thank you for all your time on doing this.
Well, thank you.
Done for another 4 years.
Yeah. All right. Roll call. Kraus?
Yes.
Thierry?
Yes.
Giannotti?
Yes.
Possession?
Yes.
Caperas?
Yes.
Comcast has announced another rate increase, I guess, coming up with the first of the year. This is not politically correct, but I have no words. Another rate increase. We're going to change the order of the meeting. Instead of finance and administration, we're going to jump to planning, building, and zoning, since we have a member of the public here. We can take care of that. So planning, building, and zoning, Trustee Strauss.
Thank you. I'd like to consider an ordinance granting a variance for a fence in the front yard setback at 250 Maple. The PZC held a hearing and no negative testimony was received. The PZC unanimously recommended granting the variance as long as the fence is built according to what was submitted and is at least 3 feet from the public walk. The HOA in Prairie Crossing South has already approved of the fence location. Do you have an ordinance number?
That is 1358.
So I'd like to consider ordinance 1358, granting a variance for a fence in the front yard setback at 250 Maple.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion?
Any PZC any comments received at the PZC meeting about it?
Nope.
No, we don't.
Oh, sorry, that's all right. He's on the commission.
There was nothing received. I think the board should take a look at, and I think Roger would have brought it up as we mentioned it to him, that we're getting these exceptions all the time for these types of fences at corner lots. You need to change the ordinance because really it shouldn't be. They should change that.
You're saying they shouldn't have to go through the whole.
Yeah, you're making a
Yes.
fence $150 and we're granting them, and
Agreed.
you know, let's take a look at that and see if you can't change that.
Absolutely.
All right. Roll call. Caperas?
Yes.
Possession?
Yes.
Giannotti?
Yes.
Thierry?
Yes.
Kraus?
Yes.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
You don't want to stay for the rest of it?
Yeah.
I got 3 kids on my
Run while you
list.
can.
I would say then.
Yeah. Consider an ordinance authorizing a 10-year extension of a development agreement with the successor owner to the preserve at Cardinal Creek Subdivision. This extension does remove the 20-year-old cap on engineering review fees and building permit fees charged to builders, but keeps in place the required infrastructure to be installed if additional pods in the subdivision are constructed. Keeping this in place for another 10 years is in the best interest of the village, but beyond that time frame, the village should review these capital needs once again to see if they are still valid. It is recommended that this 10-year extension be approved. Please see it in closed ordinance. Bob, would you like to explain, or someone else, please?
Yeah, in this development agreement was different than the one we have for Fieldgate in that the developer was committed to paying for improvements in different phases of construction. Like in improving well 4 to a larger motor, bigger casing, improving the sanitary force main, increasing the size of the gravity feed lines to the sewer plant. These issues are still valid today, and there's no harm in doing a 10-year extension. However, 10 years from now, I believe there'll be a lot of new bodies around this table, and they should review the whole development agreement if it's not committed to within that 10-year time. And it does expire December 1st.
Okay. So it has to be pretty much done tonight.
Yeah, and the attorney recommends approval. He's been working on this.
Ordinance number?
1359.
Just check it. So I'd like to consider an ordinance 1359, authorizing a 10-year extension of a development agreement with the successor owner to the preserve at Cardinal Creek Subdivision.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? Roll call?
Kraus,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Genati,
Yes.
Possession,
Yes.
Caprows.
Yes.
And that's all I have.
Thank you. Finance and Administration Committee, Trustee Kapoor.
Consider an ordinance adopting a tax levy for fiscal year 2021 collectible in 2022. As we discussed in strategic planning and after a meeting of the Finance Committee last summer, this ordinance was drafted placing an overall 2% increase in the corporate levy into the police protection tax levy. This increase of $12,142 in the operating levy combined with the $1,716 decrease in the GO bond levy results in an increase of $10,426 in overall levy, or 1.46%. If we assume another 5% increase in the EAV we have experienced in the last 2 years, the overall tax rate for the village will decrease from 0.6572 to 0.6351. This means that a home in town valued at $235,000 will see a decrease in what it pays property taxes to the village of $17.14, from $509.66 to $492.52. It will also be the first time since 2011 that the village property tax assessed on a $235,000 home will fall below $500 for the year. Enclosed is the ordinance and the chart. I also just wanted to be clear that while the tax rate may be dropping, we are increasing the levy. This village board went 7 years without ever asking for a penny more. We never increased the levy for 7 years consecutively. Last year, and now again this year, we are doing it, and it's strictly for police protection. This money is going directly towards the police department, which is why I think it had the backing to begin with without increasing that levy. So, yes, we are asking for more dollars this year. Although it will go down because the total EAV is going down, their tax rate will go down. We are still asking for more money than the previous year. But I am definitely in favor for it with what it's being used for. So I will go ahead and make a motion approving ordinance 1360. I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 1360 adopting a tax levy for the fiscal year 2021 collectible in 2022.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second the motion.
There's a motion and a second. Discussion? Roll call?
Caprows,
Yes.
Possession,
Yes.
Genati,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Kraus.
Yes.
Consider a financing plan for the village's 20% share of the Penfield Street STP project. Encloses a report which was provided to the Finance Committee for review and consideration and has now been referred to the village board for its review. We anticipate paying out 80% share of this 20% sometime in March of '22. The enclosed memo outlines the use of reserve cash in the MFT account combined with a 10-year loan to be paid with future MFT revenues to pay our $1,333,200 share of this project. The board is being asked to review and approve a motion supporting this plan. Basically, unlike in prior with this loan agreement, we have to pay, first of all, it's a 80-20 grant. We are responsible for 20% of the total project. Of this 20%, they are now asking for 80% of that 20% upfront. Where in years prior and other agreements prior, it was all due at the end. Now, to do that, we're talking about using reserve cash from the MFT and a 10-year loan. That 10-year loan has a dedicated revenue source, the MFT money that comes into the village. We are saying that a portion of that MFT money that comes in every year will pay for this loan. So, does anybody have any questions on it before I make the motion?
I actually read it, and I just want to make sure I'm not oversimplifying this. So the bottom line is, to come up with that 80% of that 20 we owe, we're using a loan, which was dedicated source of the MFT funds for those 10 years. And then 2025, we'll have enough of the MFT to pay off the other 20% that we owe.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
It also frees up your infrastructure account. We're not using anything
Yes.
in the infrastructure account.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion approving the financing plan for the village's 20% share of the Penfield Street STP project.
There's a motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second, discussion, roll call.
Kraus,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
Genetti,
Yes.
Possession,
Yes.
Caprows.
Yes. And then as we get closer to this, the treasurer will come up with options for us, Bob.
Yes, that's the next step now, is going to get a loan commitment.
Audit update, the audit's complete, we're in the process of wrapping up the management responses to the audit findings, which are minimal. The audit will be presented at the December 13th meeting. Illinois Personnel Benefits Co-op quarterly report is enclosed for your review. This is our health insurance pool. At this time, the village has accumulated $43,529 in unrestricted reserves on account with the IPBC. Our current loss ratio of claims to premium is 71.7%, which is good. As of our quarterly report is also enclosed for your review. Insurance rates for workers' compensation and liability coverage will also be increasing this year, but less than what we budgeted. The total cost for 2022 will be $170,154, and we budgeted $183,612. Last year we paid $166,919, so premiums are only up by $32.35. However, we do not have a quote for cyber liability yet for 2022, and we expect to see an additional cost of about $5,000 for this insurance, which still keeps us under budget. That's about it. Does anybody have any questions on that? Okay.
So for that one though, it's just like, I guess, informative.
Yes,
Okay.
that concludes my report.
Okay. Public Buildings and Properties, Parks and Recreation Committee, Trustee Terry.
Oh, yes, with the Fireman's Park update, all the old cameras have been replaced, and they're, we've got new technology there, and we're good to go, so our tree will be under well surveillance. Yeah.
Hey,
That's all I
Chief.
have.
I got a question. Chief, do you know when he's coming back?
Wednesday.
Wednesday? Okay, will
He
he
might
need to?
not need the bucket truck, he
Okay.
might just be able to use ladders, but we'll let you know.
Okay. Public Safety Committee, Trustee Kraus.
Thank you. The SRO program update. At the strategic planning workshop last week, several school board members attended, where the future of the SRO program was discussed by both boards. And it was agreed that the school district's personnel committee, the village's public safety committee, the chief and the school superintendent meet to work out any deficiencies that may exist in the program and make it work much better than is currently perceived to be working. This will also include the selection and training of the new SRO for the schools. Lead chief, you put out today a solicitation to the department for interested, personnel interested in that, and that's due to you by the end of this week, right?
It's due by Sunday, and we'll interview, set up meetings next week with the school.
Okay. Any questions about that?
No, I have a question just on process. There never was officially a vote taken by either side on the SRO program.
Correct.
Is there a need to, or do we just say,
No.
move on? Okay,
We're still under
Yeah,
contract.
we're still working under an IGA, so.
okay, got it. I just wanted to make sure no one was expecting to vote.
And the corporal promotion update, that list was posted today at the PD. chief will look at that and make a selection and give it to the board. Full-time officer list, police commission is in the process of beginning a new list. Right now, I have the dates of either January 22nd or 29th, I'm waiting on the availability of our testing service. I spoke with the fire chief, they will make their facility available again for the testing process, and we will go from there.
How long will that list last for?
It's a 2-year list once it's established.
Does it have to be?
I don't know. I don't know if it's law or if it's just the way it's done everywhere. I'd have to look that up. I don't. Do you know, chief?
It's done, I don't know if it's law either, but it's done like that everywhere. 2 years.
We're a little bit of a hybrid, we probably have a little more control, because we don't fall under the commission rules yet, it depends on what our resolution says that we passed.
Okay.
Yeah, do you want a shorter list, John?
I'd prefer to see one,
Shorter than 2 years?
yes, way shorter. Way shorter.
I mean, we can discuss it. I mean, it's not, we have time before anything like that can be posted. We're looking at least February, so we can have that discussion.
I just, after how the last list played out and you got down to the very end, it was expiring and this and that, I just feel as though having a long list with a long time tied to it, you could end up tying yourself to the bottom of the barrel, right? If you list them, say you had, last time you guys developed a list, right, you ended up with, it started with approximately 10. I think we're on that
I
list.
think our final list was 8, that
8.
passed everything.
Okay, so by the time you got around to it, you were literally looking at the last 2 candidates out of that. And
Correct.
you were possibly tied pending approvals and everything else to where we're a small community, it's a small department. Just think, if you establish that list when you hire it, keep it for 6 months or something like that, and if it comes about, you redo, because if you get to the end of that list, I really think that starting a new list, you could end up with much better candidates than you had at the bottom. So I just think, I mean, if there is some flexibility as to how long you keep it, I understand the process of it, because as you go through it, and if these people don't work out immediately, you still have something else to go back off of, that you don't have to go through this whole process of interviewing and testing and everything else again, but, I mean, if it were shorter, 6 months, 9 months, a year tops, or
I
something like
believe it's
that.
even possible, because we don't fall under the commission rules, we kind of make our own rules. You could have a 2-year list, but could be expunged by a majority vote of the village board, if that's what you want to do. That way, it could be a 2-year list, but you could expunge it at any time by board motion.
The best scenario is to have an opening right when your list comes out, because what happens is the top people are taken by other towns. If we don't have an opening, they're gonna take them somewhere else. And then you go to the bottom of the list where you don't wanna be. So I totally agree that if we could, it would be best to pick people right off that list and then start another list if we can do it in less than 2 years.
I think you probably can.
I think, one of the things too is, the cost efficiency of having the testing service come out. And I don't think the Public Safety Committee would have a problem interviewing and going through the process, I didn't think it would took that long.
No, I mean, the biggest, I mean, like right now, I just called them, they have nothing in December, the earliest they can get out is January. And we do have a meeting open, I tried getting something in December. So I agree 2 years for a small town might be a little long, I don't know if 6 months is the answer, because it might take us 2-3 months to get a list. So we have an immediate opening.
No, I'm saying, once the list is established, it only being good for, say, 6 months after that.
Yeah, but
To
so
where you-
the list expires in 6 months, and we don't have a need to hire, so we don't do another test, because we wouldn't test just to test. But then when that need comes up, it might take us 2-3 months just to get a list together. It's not an oral, and then, we'll advertise for 2 weeks, we'll do our, oral boards in a week, and then get the list. I mean, we're sort of at the mercy of a testing facility to do some of this stuff. I mean,
I don't see our department growing, right? We've got it where we're at. We've made our,
even the last 4 years, how many new hires have we done?
for a
Six?
full-time,
6, maybe? I mean,
or 5, yeah.
yeah, I mean, and
And that was due to staff increase sizes.
increase, we had 2 or 3 leave. We had one just, yeah, including the last one we just did, I think we have a total of 3 leave in the last 4 years. We have called part-timers leave, that's a little different, but it's part-time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
I agree, 2 years is probably a little long. I just don't know.
I just think what
And we'll say one of the officers we do have was sort of lower on the list, and I think he's doing a great job. So I understand what you're saying, but there are minimum standards, just, it's not like whoever tests, it's not just because like you sign up for the test, you automatically are on that list. You have to pass a physical. you
Yeah,
have to
I
pass
get
a
that, I
written.
get all
So
that,
there are some,
but still,
Yeah.
at some list, right, if you have 8 on the last one, you have your number 1 and you have your number 8. Right, at some point, I think the number 1 on list number 2 should be a better candidate than number 8 from list number 1.
and theoretically they could be, but you could have a list where everyone score, I mean, number 8 might score higher than your next number 1. Like I said, I'm not saying 2 years is too long, but I'm saying 6 months is probably too short.
That is-
So
There
how
should
about a
be
year?
a good in between.
Okay. We've debated this out on our own. I still don't even see the need for a list. When you have an opening, you go through the process, you hire. We're that size of a department, we're not a Naperville or Moreland where we're running 100 and something officers where you have that kind of turnover.
But we literally have had that turnover, John. And us losing 1 is a big deal compared to Naperville losing.
Yes, I get that, and you've had that, let's realistically look at why you've had to make those hires. We know the reasons why. You had 1 retirement, you had 1 that left for a different opportunity, and the other one won't even need to get into it,
Yeah.
right? So 3 times. Other than that, it's been new hires with the staff increases, and I can tell you that the 6 years prior to that, you only had 1 new hire before you came on board for 6 years,
Yeah.
where you needed a new person. So I think hopefully you're past that hump where you shouldn't need that.
I think that too, and then something else always happens. But I agree.
But that's
I
where a
agree.
2-year list,
I agree,
think is.
I agree that 2 years is probably too long. We'll look into it and get an answer either way if we have to or don't have to. I lost my spot, thanks, John.
I think you're on number 4.
Part-time officer hiring status, chief. You just, the ones getting their uniforms and
Yeah,
getting the FTO
Dylan
program.
Serta, we're in the process of putting him in the FTO program. He's gotta get his uniforms in, but we anticipate him starting the, field training program in the next week or 2. He's already a police officer, so he doesn't have to go to the academy.
And just to piggyback on that, like the past, when we do the full-time hiring advertisement, we'll put the part-time in there too. So if there's any good candidates out there, then we'll get them with that advertisement also. And then Eastern Will County Warning Siren Network needs to be upgraded. Bob, I'll just let you explain this, because I
Yeah.
don't know anything about this.
And this is
before.
something that caught us flat-footed. I did not know. To me, I always thought there was a button at dispatch center, they push a button, the sirens go off. Apparently it's a lot more complicated than that. And a computer that they had just for the activating the sirens burned up, and they can't replace it because the technology is so old. So what they wanna do is tie it directly into the National Weather Service. When the polygon goes out, if you're signed up with Nixle, you know your phone goes off when the National Weather Service issues the polygon warning, which is that possible area that the tornado might go. This will be tied right into it, so if we fall into that polygon, then the sirens are gonna go off automatically. There's no human error, there's no delay. Usually if there's severe weather in Will County, it moves west to east. Dispatch is so busy, by the time the severe weather gets to the east side of the county, we've had times where there's been a delay or a gap in when that siren actually goes off. This will be automatic. So I think for the extra $500 a year, it's probably not a bad thing to tie it into this automatic term.
So the National Weather Service will control this?
No, it's controlled by a computer that's tied into the National Weather Service. we can change the parameters.
So beach, so
If
beach,
Bob Heim, decides that, it should only, if the polygon is within 5 miles of us, it go off, we can do that. If it's directly in a polygon, we can do that. Those are decisions that we'd have to make, you know, once we buy the software, how we wanna fine tune it. Most communities will want their sirens to go off if there's a polygon that enters Eastern Will, which is probably, this is what we think might be best. And the EMA directors, they get together and they'll decide all this, how it goes off. Right now, it's so fine tuned that Church Road siren could go off, but the one on the west side of town doesn't because it doesn't fall in the polygon. It's that fine tuned. I think that's too fine tuned. I'm not gonna take chances that west side of town doesn't do a siren activation, but Church Road does, so
well, we need to
we're gonna
change,
loosen those
yeah,
parameters.
so you can change parameters if one siren goes off, the other off. but-
That's correct. And we'll let the EMA directors figure out what they wanna do with that, but they will have control of when those sirens go off. Not
So,
the
and
actual-
there is also a manual control for this, so if for some reason
Correct.
the computer doesn't work or gets knocked out, you know, one of our weather spotters could, activate this.
There's no update to any equipment, this is just software.
No, it's
We
all
leave the-
cloud-based, actually, we won't have a computer running it, a standalone like we do right now.
Yeah.
It'll be a cloud-based activation, just like our
The
Nixon.
the existing sirens stay in place?
Yes,
Okay.
yep, and they're still activated by radio.
It's just a different way to activate that.
Yeah.
Correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Any other questions on that? That's all I have.
Public Works Committee, Trustee Giannotti.
The committee, discussed, to talk about solutions to numerous water main breaks in the last 3 months. The principal areas of concern are, Miller Street, west of Dixie Highway, and Catalpa, north of Miller. The committee discussed the causes of these breaks and potential alternatives. There are concerns that the Public Works Department was beginning to burn out from long hours of repair, so the use of contractor was approved for water main breaks occurring within 48 hours of a previous break. The use of surge suppressors in the system and operating modifications were also discussed. Replacing all the main on Miller is also on the table, but there are concerns the breaks will just move to another street, so we need to address the cause as much as the result. So to go along with this, just wanted to publicly acknowledge the guys over at the department. They did, what was it, Matt, 16 breaks in 22 days?
Yep.
So, working endless amounts of hours, especially Jim, well, Matt was actually gone. Jim and Steven, stepped up big to take over and kind of run the guys. All the new guys are stepping up, so it was good to see that, and we appreciate all their efforts in, keeping everything up and going. Especially along Miller Street, it was a little bit of a headache there for a 5-day period. They had 3 breaks over 5 days just on Miller Street, so. But yeah, we're looking into a few different things now. Matt, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Just talking about the suppressors, I talked to the gentleman that manufactures them out of Carroll Stream. Me and Steve, the water operator, will probably be going up there to look those over here the next week or so, when we get caught up with leaves and his hydrant flushing that he's doing now, so. The idea behind the suppressor is that if there's a shock in the system, that the suppressor will absorb it. There's an air gap that you install along the main. Basically, they can be pre-built, and when you have a break and we have to cut a section out, you just replace that section of main with a suppressor instead, and it's supposed to. The guy's obviously a salesman. He's trying to sell his product, obviously, but he guarantees that he can stop our brakes, which I don't know how you can guarantee something like that, but it's worth a shot. They're approximately $2,000 to $2,500 a piece. So.
I don't think you can make a guarantee like that.
Right.
When I look at the design and how it works, it
Yeah.
should help.
Oh yeah, definitely. Definitely.
Oh, and the other thing too that comes along with that, when we were talking about in the meeting, we thought there was a vault that had to be involved. These are direct buried.
Right.
There's no
Yeah.
vaulting them or anything like that, so we're cutting that section of pipe out anyway.
we did have Energenics, which is our SCADA company for the water system, come out 2 weeks ago today. They did some changes to, especially to well number 4, where the antenna was moved at well 4. They were thinking that since the antenna at well 4 was directly underneath the ComEd power lines, that ComEd could have, there's no guarantee that this was a cause, but ComEd could have changed the polarity in the wires above. That could cause radio frequency transmission issues. So they could have reversed the flow, they could have upped the hertz, they could have lowered the hertz, they could have done whatever. And we were having 45-minute intervals to where well 4 was not communicating with the rest of the system. So since they came out last Monday, or 2 Mondays ago, we haven't had any communication problems. Energenics is coming back out tomorrow to change the antenna and some wiring at well number 3 to help reduce that lag time of communication there as well. So I think we're on the right track. We're, knock on wood, we've been quiet now for 2 weeks, so hopefully we can continue that trend, but I think we're on the right track of getting some of the issues resolved in the water system.
And we have used the contractor on one break so far, correct?
Yeah, we had 2 on Melrose Lane on a Saturday, and as soon as they were valving the first one up, another one blew down the street, so I called M&J Underground right away, and they were able to accommodate us and come out. So.
You can send your guys home.
Yeah. With that, we keep one guy here for running parts and things of that nature, but at that time our water operator, Steve, stayed. He was here from 6 in the morning and I think until 1 a.m. the following morning, so he worked some long hours that day to keep things going.
So Matt,
Yeah.
is the idea then that you guys think that something to do with the well 4 thing is causing the surges then?
Yeah,
or-
because when there was no communication, the tower was overflowing as well as not filling at times. The system was running on pressure then instead. Every foot in the tower that the tower increases, the pressure increases by 2.33 psi. So in the grand scheme of things, everybody thinks, oh, that raised 2 feet, it's only 4 psi. Well, in all reality, when you're looking at from 48 to 52 psi, that's a big difference in the big picture. But yeah, we do think that was definitely had correlation because we did notice the pumps kicking on, kicking off, kicking on, kicking off at well 4 due to some of the communication issues. So we could see it in our trends on the SCADA. I know Ben, you've been out there once or twice, but if you actually come out and look at our SCADA screen, you can see it should look like a perfect heartbeat. Up, down, up, down, up, down. And before, like I said, there was 45-minute intervals where there was no communication at all, so you get these long lag run times or no run times. So, yeah, we definitely think that the radio transmission problem was cause of some of this. A couple other times we've had breaks, Saturday morning, like the one up here right across from DeYoung's. ComEd did have a power failure in town about 2 hours prior. That could cause the pumps to automatically just shut off, where right now they're on VFDs, variable drive, where they slowly ramp up and slowly shut off. Well, when the power cuts off, they just shut off, so there's some correlation with some of that, but some of that stuff's not fixable, with ComEd shutting power off or something happening like that and it just stops. It's kind of is what it is, but.
Out of our control.
Yeah, right. Some of the breaks we had, the fire department did have, the big church fire, and it wasn't long after that. It was about a week after that when all this started, so it might have stirred the system up. They had another fire out on county line where they were pulling water from over here by Aurelio's, Pachangas. And then the following morning we had a break right over here in the old part of town on Park and Catalpa area. So there's some things that could correlate, but a lot of what we were seeing was communication problems with our SCADA system. So hopefully we got that straightened out and we can keep it quiet for a while.
Thank you.
Okay, along with talking about water mains, the committee also approved shortening the brush collection season. Brush collection needs to end earlier in the fall as Public Works ramping up for the leaf collection program. The committee approved a Public Works proposal to end brush pickup after the first Tuesday in October.
Is that what we agreed to, or was it the last Tuesday in September?
It was actually the last Tuesday in September. Basically, October 1st would be the cutoff, so.
So it'd be the Tuesday, the last Tuesday in
Of
September.
September, basically, yeah.
Nice.
With this program, it's gonna start April 1st and then basically October 1st. That's still 26 weeks, so the residents still have plenty of time to get their brush out. I mean,
Did you
that's
say it starts April 1st?
April 1st, yeah. Whatever that Tuesday is, right around April 1st, yeah. So that, like I said, that still gives them 26 weeks, which is obviously half of the year, you know, so that's, and in our eyes, that's still plenty of time for the residents to get their yards cleaned up and get stuff out, so. Now, that does not include,
Emergencies.
yeah, emergency cleanup after ice storms, wind
Storm
damage, any type of storm damage. We will do special pickups then, so,
And those will be announced on Facebook, correct?
yeah.
Okay. The committee recommends, the early ordering of next year's Public Works, vehicle purchase. Once the vehicle order is prepared by the superintendent, it will be placed on the agenda for board approval. There is a 6-month lag on these orders as well. Next year, we are scheduled to replace the water main break response vehicle. Anything to add to that, Matt?
I have numbers now, but we can put it in on the next, agenda for
Yeah,
approval.
that way we can show them the whole purchase order.
Yeah.
And then the Gould Street water main update. Mr. Barber?
Still nothing from DCO. Way to go, fast track grant, you know? Their 30 days are up, but they're still deliberating on our, WBE process.
Hopefully next week. Leaf collection update, Superintendent Connor?
To date, we have collected 45 loads of our typical 55 to 60, so we're on track for another week or so of collection, and then we'll be over. We'll be done with the program, so.
And to let the public know, you must have your leaves out by 7 AM on the 6th of December, which is
Yep.
Monday.
Next
There's
Monday.
no guarantee that your leaves will be picked up after 7 AM on Monday, December 6th.
Yeah, we're gonna start our final pass beginning Monday. I don't know what part of town we're gonna start in. It all depends on where we leave off this week. Where we end on Friday, we usually go to the next spot on Monday. So, like today, we started on the west side of town. We picked up 5 loads. We didn't even get west of the tracks completed today after doing 5 loads. So, and we started up there because we didn't get to them last week with obviously being a short week. So we started there this week. So, like Mr. Barber said, have your leaves out by Monday morning at 7 AM. Once the leaf truck passes your road, picks up the leaves on your road, we will not be coming back for a second pass. So once we're down your road, that's it for this season, and we'll be changing all of our equipment over to snow operations.
Which you said Sunday night they're expecting snow already.
They are, yeah. Yep.
And then, end of year brush collection, update.
Yeah, brush collection is over for this year. We did notice a couple piles that were put out this past weekend. Trustee Caperos had a garbage truck take half of a tree down in front of his house this morning, so we will be going out picking that up as damage, like we talked about. The other 2 areas that we know that people put brush out this past weekend, we'll pick that up, but that's it. We still do have the brush unit intact on the truck, so we can still accommodate that for now, but that will be the end of it. So.
Did your tree grow over the weekend or something?
No, it was this afternoon. There was, emergency vehicles across the street. Police car, ambulance and a fire truck, so.
And the guy tried to squeeze through.
As he tried to squeeze through on, because everything was on the other side of the street, so as he squeezed through on my side, I mean, any branch that was not, you know.
In the parkway?
It was not, any branch that was overhanging the curb a little bit is now gone.
And his paint job is probably.
And, I mean, some good branches too, just ripped it right down, so. Happens.
Yep.
Alright, water billing register is enclosed for your review. You will note that the billed to pump ratio has increased to 67.43% compared to 51.35% for the same period last year. Capping the leak in Hunter's Chase has made a significant difference.
That leak could have been going for many, many years. We don't know how long it's been leaking, but the way it was leaking, it was undetectable because it went into a storm sewer, which would then discharge into a wet basin. So we couldn't even trace it. It was just by luck that we heard it running in the sewer and backtracked it. Is that correct? How we found it?
During the drought this past summer, when I was treating well 5 pond, I realized that the overflow had continuous flowing water, and our EMA director that lives in the area told me that it's been doing that for as many years as he can remember, as long as he's lived there. So it's definitely been leaking for a while. When we dug that, it looked like a tooth of a backhoe or an excavator or something had torn off a old service saddle, which might have been used for a chlorination whip or something like that. It's being right on the corner when the subdivision first went in. So there's definite damage from some sort of piece of equipment, and none of us in the department can remember ever digging there. So it's quite possible that it was done when it was put in, or sometime many,
And
many
it was
years
plastic,
ago.
it was plastic pipe too, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So you couldn't detect it with the sonar.
No, once we did fix it, the water operator noticed differences in the well numbers, well runs of 100,000 or plus per day. So that we're saving, or that he isn't pumping now. So it was significant. You got to remember too that the 67.43 we had, that includes
The 16 water main.
some of our breaks. So.
And the fire.
And the fires and things like that. Some of that stuff's accounted for. You know, the fire department guesstimated 90,000 that they used for the church fire, so we kind of, you know, ballparked that in some of our figures and whatnot. But yeah, hopefully that number continues to rise.
Okay, and the sewer department monthly report is enclosed for your review. And that concludes my report.
Alright. Economic Development and Community Relations Committee, trustee session.
Thank you. Tree lighting ceremony and Fireman's Park update. This is the last meeting before our first annual tree lighting ceremony, which I think is a pretty fun phrase to be able to say for the first time. So we will be finalizing the details, such as who is doing what and when. It appears that in lieu of church choirs, we will be having a sing-along of old traditional carols, perhaps led by a church choir and interspersed with music selections from the high school band. Marcy will MC the event. We can discuss all this and more at the meeting. St. Paul's is providing and serving hot chocolate and cookies as a thank you to the community for assisting them after the fire.
What date and time for this? It's not in there?
So December 4th,
Saturday, right?
5th at 4:30.
Sunday the 5th.
Sunday.
4:30.
Yeah, Sunday.
Sunday.
I just noticed it's not even in there.
That's why I'm asking. Sunday the 5th at 4:30, the event starts.
And then the lighting, I think it'd be
5
celebration
o'clock,
right
the
at
ceremony
5.
for that will begin at 5.
Yeah.
So a couple of questions that came up. What do we want to do for restrooms? Because everything down there is winterized for the winter. And now when the chamber did their thing, we didn't have restroom facilities for their event. They just did it and went. But this one might be a little more elaborate and longer. So,
Well, I mean, I noticed there's no end time. Should we put an end time on this thing? They sort of said just we'll wait till people stop milling around. I mean,
well, I don't,
That's like-
Santa's going to arrive at the end of the tree lighting ceremony when we're done with the band and the caroling. And I don't wanna have a deadline on it and have kids waiting in line for Santa and say, oh, the event's over, everyone's gotta go home. We wanna make sure all the kids get to see Santa, so it depends on crowd size. I hate to say it's a hard stop at 6 o'clock when there's still kids waiting in line to see Santa Claus.
If you're not getting, if Santa, I'm guessing Santa's gonna be there around 5:30-ish.
Correct.
You're gonna need an hour or so for
That's what we're thinking.
kids to get through Santa. I imagine you could be done tentatively by 7, but
6:37 is what we're thinking.
Yeah, by that time it'll be getting dark out as well and cold, so.
that'll be dark.
Yeah, we're all outdoors. Everything's outdoors. We're putting Santa inside the beer pavilion. And that's gonna be near the bonfire, which is gonna be between the beer pavilion and the big 6-wheel and the stones there.
You talking about a bathroom?
That's the issue.
I would get one for a job.
Well, we have two options we've been discussing. We could de-winterize the concrete bunker bathrooms in the middle of the park. They're winterized, but Matt says we could
There's no lights in
reactivate. Huh?
There's no lights in those.
No, they have little windows in the center, the back door has lights in the center that shine through, but
Oh,
yeah,
Yeah, but the
it's,
porta johns wouldn't either if you
yeah,
got
I
those.
guess so.
right.
But if you set them up in the right spot, there's light, but.
Yeah.
We'll do what you want. It's your show, guys.
The other thing, what was
Wouldn't
the
it
other
be
one?
cheaper just to get a porta john than having a de-winterize?
I did try calling Service Sanitation, me and Trustee Giannotti talked today a little bit about it, and I tried calling Service Sanitation and at like 4:30, nobody answered, but I think they're out of North Judson, and I believe they're an hour ahead of us, so.
I can try, yeah, I got that contact from the 4th of July, I can call her in the morning, she gets back pretty quick.
We can't use it.
Do they have it rented out?
I don't know, but they will charge us.
How much
Well,
would it cost for porta potties?
we don't know what 2 porta johns are gonna cost for a day.
Isn't it like $75 around the community center?
Yeah.
Yeah, it might be cheaper than renting
Porta
porta
johns
potties.
would be more.
Well,
than
that's the
that.
thing, so we just have to make an announcement that if anyone needs to use the restroom, the community hall's open.
If it's available.
Afterwards though too,
Yeah.
who's gonna be responsible for that?
Well, we just paid the $75 fee.
Yeah, I like that idea. That way it's
I don't
also,
have to worry about
Well,
anything.
that way, if we have total disaster with weather,
We can move
everything.
Santa,
move
we can move Santa inside too, if it's terribly cold outside, you can always put Santa inside.
We'll try to get the community center, if
All
that's
right.
available, we'll do it, if not,
We'll go
we'll.
porta
Yeah,
johns.
Porta johns, okay? Good.
Yeah.
Here you go, Matt. Is there anything else you need to be available for this?
We just show up.
Okay, alright.
Do you wanna, like, let people know, like, who serve refreshments and what's gonna be out there, stuff like that, so, I mean, I read something else, what was it, hot
Hot chocolate
chocolate
cookies.
by
Yeah,
St.
St.
Paul's,
Paul's.
you said?
It's all St. Paul.
yeah,
St.
hot chocolate and cookies, which I think is everything right now, right?
That's on the, that's on the flyer.
There's an agenda for the ceremony. She starts by making the introductions. The pastor of St. Paul's wanted to say a few words to say thank you to the community for helping their church out. That'll happen. Then we're gonna turn it over to the high school band. They'll play their 8 selections, probably straight through. Cause I wouldn't wanna get my instrument warmed up and then have to play it if it's really cold out again. I'm an old trumpet player, I know you want, once your instrument's warmed up, you wanna keep going. And then we'll do the caroling around the tree. With people, there'll be 100 handouts that we'll provide so they can follow along. After that, Santa shows up on a fire engine and sees the kids and hands out candy canes. And that's basically it.
Sounds great.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Sounds like playing.
Yeah, any other concerns from anybody?
I hesitate to ask, is that tree here?
It is en route from
It
Texas.
has allegedly shipped, that's the first thing
Yes.
I asked tonight.
We have a geo-tracker on it, so Matt can watch it follow the
I
interstate.
mean, I don't know how big this thing is, but I got some leave I could burn at work, if you need to give me a car and go down there and get it for this thing, I don't have a vehicle that'll fit it.
It's
so I-
735 pounds.
Yeah, it's not very yet, but I can send it.
How heavy?
735 pounds. Now, we do have a plan
I
B.
believe you wanted a big tree.
We have a plan B, we just don't have a tree for plan B, but it would be a live tree like we did the one year with the chamber. So in the case that thing doesn't show up, we will have a tree for lighting.
No need for plan B, it'll be here.
We don't have to pretend that we're lighting it.
Pretend the tree is there.
At Marcy's Fears, we'd have a little ceramic tree.
I'll have a little ceramic tree with a,
They work for
Charlie
Charlie,
Brown.
well, yeah, they work
Yeah.
for Charlie Brown.
Oh, Charlie
We're
Brown.
keeping together, you know.
We have a plan D, but we're not gonna worry about that till Friday.
It's a great thing.
Good, excellent. Okay, so moving on. Begin to consider dates and protocols for the 2022 concert season in the park. $10,000 has been placed in the 5-year plan for entertainment. There'll be also hearing of some other potential sponsors that may want to step forward and host a concert. We first need a playbook to treat everyone fairly on this, such as start and stop times, exact dates, and the type of entertainment to be selected for the events. The committee can take on that role and design a schedule for the year that works with the budget in place. The board can provide input at the meeting as to what it expects from these events, and the committee can then meet to begin the planning.
My concern is if you start allowing sponsorships for these bands, then the sponsors might wanna dictate what type of entertainment you're providing.
No,
I got an issue with that.
I think that should be the sole decision of the village board.
Correct.
Or of the, the village board's input, and the committee then decides from there.
Yeah,
If someone wants to sponsor, okay, but you can put your name on it, we can get a sign made, you can put your name on the sign, no say in any of the.
I think it'd be better for us to come up with what we expect and then farm that out and say, if you'd like to sponsor, this is the event we have, here's the date, here's the times.
If you wanna sponsor this.
Here's the list of what we have.
Yeah.
And I don't wanna take from other commissions and their fundraising efforts either, I don't wanna take away from their causes either.
Yeah,
So
but,
this is gonna take some thought by a committee.
yeah, I mean, we,
So what would be the purpose or even need for a sponsor?
That's my question.
so I think that's all gonna come down.
I've been approached, I'm just gonna say that much, I'm not gonna get into who, what, when, where, and why, but I've been approached about it. And I said, we haven't made any decisions regarding that yet. There's a committee that's gonna be formed to make those decisions and set up rules for how, or protocols for how we're gonna deal with the summer concert series,
Mhm.
you know. I mean, they're excited, let's face it, people are excited about it. you know.
Are they just looking for advertising purposes?
I'm not sure. How can we sponsor a band? We got a great band we'd like to see in there, ooh, time out, you know?
Yeah,
We gotta think this through.
I mean, people can if people wanna submit suggestions to the committee, that's fine, but we're still gonna have, I feel the village is gonna end up footing the bill for most of this. If, it should be all of it, because that was the whole goal of this, to
Right.
bring the community together via the village.
Well, the first thing we have to decide is, do we create an ad hoc committee? Or does it fall under community relations, or does it fall under parks and recreation? Where does this concert series, where should it be? Should it be an ad hoc committee? Should it be one of the assigned committees here?
just let the two committees get together. Do we need another committee?
I think they're both
Work
the
it
same
out.
right now, don't you guys flip anyway? Is it you and Ben on Parks and Rec?
So, yeah.
No.
there'd be
No.
four of
No.
us. So,
Well, no, Parks and Rec
Todd
is
is
being
on.
built, yeah.
oh,
Oh,
so
Todd's
there's
on
three.
Parks?
So it'll be three of us.
So there's three of us.
Because
Joe and Ben.
Joe and Ben are
Yeah.
Public Works.
Yeah.
On the common link here,
Ben's the common link,
so, yeah. I think
no ties.
having like the two committees to work, especially since we're gonna be in Fireman's Park, is not a bad idea personally. Additionally, if we're looking at a extended series of concerts, I think having, at least an additional head in there is helpful from a coordination standpoint. I mean, when you look at like the 4th of July, there's a lot of cooks in the kitchen, taking care of making everything running. And so, maybe, but, I also think if we wanna pull it off smoothly, it might be better to have a little bit of room for either specialization or coordination. So,
I don't think this board should give up any control over who,
Yeah.
what, when, where.
No.
yeah, no, I agree with you on that, Todd.
The sponsors, John, answer your question, I mean, if someone wants to sponsor it, I mean, yeah, we'll hear it, but I mean, why would you pass up money if someone wants to give $1,000 to sponsor an event, why would you,
So, I think the whole idea of this, and like, one of the things when I brought it up, I know me and Marcia talked about this numerous times over the past couple of years in that lane, is the whole idea is to use the park more, right? That the park is underutilized, you have a vendor building, you have this stage, and it's just never used. And the whole idea was just that the village provide entertainment options at the park. I don't want people to say, I don't wanna sponsor the 4th of July, I wanna sponsor this night, or, and then see what the schedule of the bands is and anything. The sponsor is the Village of Beecher. The sponsor isn't so-and-so bar, or so-and-so restaurant, or so-and-so whatever business it may be. The sponsor is the Village of Beecher. This is something we're doing. I don't see any need for the sponsors. In response to turn down, we can do it. Put your money towards the 4th. Pick a band to sponsor there. They have other options.
So if we have a restaurant or restaurant A or bar A out there, we're not gonna allow them to put their signs out there saying that's who it is? I mean, cause then people might think they're sponsoring.
Well, we would have them work the vendor program.
If they're selling food or something like that, that's one thing, but if, what these people are probably approaching is just to solely send some sort of monetary assistance for that event, not to be a part of it, just to
Do they
support
want
the
a
event, is that the
20-foot
way?
banner?
We didn't get into that level of, I just told them when they approached me regarding sponsoring a band, I said, we haven't made those decisions yet as to how we're gonna proceed next year.
I don't know,
Because this discussion has to occur.
kind of the way John's talking, I mean, the reason, the 4th of July Commission allows that, so that they can help defray the cost on the commission. Like John's saying, this is a village, we want the village to be the sponsor of this, to start showing our commitment to the community, to have community events and stuff like that, and we don't wanna get lost in the wayside. I feel like we get, you know, what, are we gonna have to get a bunch of stuff that says the Village of Beecher sponsored event? We shouldn't have to do that, it should just be the Village of Beecher Summer Concert Series brought to you by the village, you know? If we're gonna put a set amount of money towards it, let's operate within that budget. It's not like we have to have some knockout, drag out band down there, like some big thing. We kinda want it to be a community event. It's not to attract people from outside of town
Yeah.
down there. It's to attract members of the community to come down and get together and a little bit of community.
I don't even
Together.
know if you're required to have food and refreshments down there, maybe some of
No,
those
so I
nights.
think there's a couple things.
It's a BYOB thing, a picnic,
Yeah.
bring home a
Yeah.
picnic.
So on the one topic, I mean, I think obviously, I wouldn't even want to consider including any sponsorship in what we're planning. We need to plan for the amount of budget we have, and I don't see any issue with saying, let's keep this within the village, and that makes it maybe a little bit cleaner when it comes to like the financial side. I do think we need to have discussions then on, to some extent, kind of the setup of the events, you know, like the timings and days and all that stuff as far as what the village board is kind of looking for at a broad level. And I think another very key thing I'd like to have input on the board there is specifically what this got brought up about food and drink. You know, because obviously we did have, full food and drink available at our kind of pre-run, which I think worked out really well, but it also does add a lot of complication, and further coordination, and maybe we won't necessarily need that at every, event we do.
If we do like a Sunday afternoon and we have, for example, like a pieces of an orchestra or something like that, I don't expect someone to be down there selling, like, if I was going to an event like that, I wouldn't expect someone to be selling hot dogs and chips and burgers and stuff like that. Like, maybe bring your own bottle of wine, sit down, or bring the kids and, you know, a cooler and have a sandwich and a picnic, kind of, on a Sunday. I wouldn't expect to be served food at something like that. Whereas if it was on a Saturday night like that one we had in the fall, yeah, I'd probably, you know, it's later in the evening, you know, you want it to kind of, it's the kind of feel. I think we need to coordinate it with the entertainment we're having, base our selection of what we're offering, kind of catered towards what the type of music we're having played that evening, right? I mean, that's kind of what you're.
Yeah, I would agree. I think, yeah, there's that, and like as far as like kind of the days too, I think one of the big concerns I had with like the most recent event that we did was we had this one chance to make it work. And if the weather hadn't coordinated, you know, or hadn't worked with us, we were just out. So I think I'd like to see with the series, that kind of take into event and just kind of maybe aim, I don't know, this is something we can talk about. But like say, our ballpark plan is events on Saturdays with rain dates for the next Sunday, and that just is the going plan, so that if we ever have some situation, we'll at least know how it's gonna get handled.
George, do you have a comment?
No. So you're saying like.
It's done now?
Well,
Pass that.
Moment passed.
Gas sanctuary. What's easy for the residents to understand is if you say we're gonna hold an event in the park every second Saturday of every month from May through September. Then they can put that on their calendar, they know that that's gonna be a concert night. That's probably what we need to do. If you jump that date around, that might work, but it takes a lot more promotion to make sure people know what the date and time are. But if you pick to a specific date each month, the second Saturday of the month is concert night. That would be easier for the public to remember, you know?
Yeah, I like that.
The first Saturday could be a problem because you would run into holiday weekends, 4th of July and Labor Day. So you probably want to pick a second, third, or fourth Saturday, or Sunday, doesn't have to be
Yeah.
Saturday, but you probably want to stay off the first weekend of the month, because these are usually when the holidays hit.
Yeah, so the Lions Club does their beef too.
If they do their beef the first Saturday in August, which is tradition for them, that would knock that out, so. And that's just some ideas, but
No, yeah.
the committee needs to meet this winter and get that resolved, because you want to start booking these bands pretty soon, so they can get the dates on their calendar.
Yeah, very conservative.
Do you think it's worthwhile to discuss the topic you were thinking about earlier?
I mean, I'll bring it up. So, I know we kinda had thrown it around when we were initially talking budget-wise, about possibly tying in this with the 4th of July Commission and using one of our, if we do more than one date within the month, using one of our July dates to tie in with the 4th of July Commission and get with the Entertainment Committee from 4th of July, and then the Villages Committee, and try to come to some sort of agreement where the village is partially sponsoring the band for that night, so the village is involved in that event. It also is a good opportunity to promote the summer concert series within town, and we might be able to get a bigger ticket, you know, show for that, where, you know, we got more people. You're drawing a big crowd from in town, some people that might not come down to a regular concert night, but they see that the village is sponsoring this, and it might draw some more crowd from the village to come down to some of the later events in August and September, August or September, if we go into, you know, an Oktoberfest for Todd.
So is the 4th of July Commission looking for basically money from the village to sponsor a band one night?
I'm not saying that there has been mention at the 4th of July Commission meetings about the village doing some sort of sponsorship. I think this would be a low cost and easy compromise to that. It gets the village's name on some of the advertising for the 4th of July, and it's also not a big expense per se, big sponsorship. And I'm sure that the 4th of July's Entertainment Committee would be willing to sit down and talk and discuss, you know.
It's not the 4th
Possibly.
of July Commission, it's one or two members that
Yeah.
have been coming back with, because of the fact that we came up with 15 grand, it's like, that needs to be something every year.
And
Yeah, I was there for the meeting.
And I don't-
there for that.
and I don't
I'm
agree-
asking that question.
I don't
That's
agree.
been, that's
I
been
was
two
looked at and
meetings,
asked if the
two
village-
meetings in a row,
Fight.
so.
But
Village
I'm just
put money
saying,
again.
I'm
Send
sure
them a
that,
bill from the police department for what it really costs us.
I'm sure that there's someone on the Entertainment Committee that would be very easily talked to about this.
Yeah, and I'm not saying no, I mean, maybe a night brought to you by Village's summer concert series.
It gives it some publicity, and it's a community event that the village is a part. Now the village is a part of that community event. They're, you know, just a thought. Not saying it has to be, just a thought.
Yeah, something to talk about. I guess it's nice to know if anybody has
Does anyone,
strong feelings
yeah.
against it.
anyone objecting to that?
I'd like to see what the proposal is, actually.
Huh?
I mean, I'd like to see
Oh,
what
yeah.
the proposal
Yeah.
is. and
Yeah, I
instead of
mean,
just-
Yeah,
I'm not gonna say no now, but
No.
let's see what they
I
have.
know that the Entertainment Committee will be meeting, from the 4th of July Commission will be meeting this week at some point to discuss where they're at, so maybe they'll get in touch with the villages
Excellent.
committee.
And I just wanna point out too, they did have a record sponsorship this past year, right?
They did. Looking forward to trying to top that this year. So,
I think you can.
so moving forward, there is a possibility you guys would be on board with
I know
working together.
a lot of us wear several different hats, but there are other commissions that the village has, and they should be included in any type of, you know, if the youth commission wanted to do we wanted to sponsor a concert night and let them take it that night, we should allow that too.
Oh, yeah.
The Historic Preservation Commission, perhaps, we used to have street dances down there by the depot. We had a band out there, and those were well-attended events.
And maybe that's a good,
So,
that's, and like you're saying, Bob, that might be a good way to tie the commissions back in, let the village commissions get involved in the concert series. That would be fun.
but that's up to this committee.
So,
You
Yeah,
guys
we'll
need to
discuss.
vet all these issues
Yeah.
out, because I can see they're gonna come, you know.
yeah. And it's gonna be a learning process as it goes along, I'm sure. We're not gonna get it right the first time.
Yeah. So
It's
the-
new.
Yeah, it'll be, but I think there's a lot of good
There's a
opportunity
lot of
here.
promise here.
People were really excited about this first one.
And you could keep it very simple and say, our rules are, village pays for the band goes on the stage, and bring your own stuff. I mean, it could be that simple too, it doesn't have to be a big elaborate super show every time either.
Yeah, which I, honestly, I think, at least, I think it might be nice for various residents if we have a bit of variety in things, so that everybody can find something that they do
I think
like,
the key to the success is variety.
you know,
You
So-
can't have the same type of music every month, it's gotta,
right. But yeah, I guess, I'm not sure if I mentioned it earlier though, I do think we ought to temper our expectations on like maybe the number. With that 10K budget, I think probably max we can do is around 7 to 8 decent shows depending on the cost of the bands. That's gonna, based on what I was seeing come back when I was researching initially, you know, it's pretty easy for them to go over $1,000. And so while we might be able to bring in some, I think, smaller numbers to help blow that out, I know that at least a couple of them are probably gonna be in that higher range.
What other, besides the cost of the band, what other costs would we have? Like, do we need like cleanup or?
So actually, Todd, that's a great question too. This is just spitballing, and I'm curious from anybody that might have info on the 4th of July. What is the cost that you guys usually see around the sound equipment or light equipment for the 4th?
So our guy is, the sound guy
Mhm.
for a 4-day is somewhere between like 2 and 25 depending.
that comes with lights too.
Yeah, he does come with some lighting and stuff like that.
For the entire 4th or per?
For the 4 days, yeah, for
Okay.
the 4 days and that's,
She said one day, I'm like.
in
what?
our for our normal, and that's for our normal, the normal sound guy that we have, obviously this year we had someone different. But that's like normal from start to close, that's,
The advantage to having the sound guy for the 4th is we can get bands on and off the stage a lot faster when we're not moving amps and speakers. So if we have an afternoon band followed by an evening band, we only need a half hour, an hour in between.
it's just equipment change, it's not.
Yeah, it's
What
a
if-
lot quicker.
Rather than the village sponsoring a band, what if you talk to the guy who does the music and get a price for, I mean, I think first thing you guys gotta decide is how many nights you're gonna have stuff and to what degree of entertainment you're talking.
Yeah, I was just thinking one band until Bob said swap bands. Yeah.
So, like, when I brought this up, like, the whole thing when I brought this up to Marcy years ago before is, when I used to live in Milwaukee, I lived right across the street from Jackson Park. And right out my townhouse, I had a huge front porch, and literally right on the other street was the park. And every Thursday night, they had jazz in the park. And me and my roommate would always have friends over on Thursday nights, and we would sit on our front porch, and they had the music going, and we would just sit around and have drinks. I always thought that the village should be doing something like that, whether it be, every other or whatever, and different things, not necessarily just jazz in the park, okay? And my whole thought on it is something like 3 bigger nights, right? You can't inundate like
Too much
community
too
with,
soon.
every other weekend of, something to do, but, I mean, when you look at what other communities that do this kind of stuff, Orland Park, Lennox, stuff like that, they have 3 bigger nights, right, and that's it. And I can see having some other off nights on
random Thursday night or something like that, where that's where you mix in your variety. You get an orchestra, you get a single guy that does acoustic and, you know, gets up there and sings, or, you know, maybe a small blues band or something like that, a very small thing. And those nights, absolutely, Bob, you just, no need to provide anything, food or alcohol, you just have it at the park where people can come and throw a blanket out and bring a cooler or, you know, a picnic basket and enjoy music. And the 3 other nights, you wanna get away from everything. I think the whole thing and why the first night was a success and it worked is we just wrote a check to get some people to get up there and play music, right? You created an opportunity for others, the Lions Club and Sitting Bull, to do their thing, let them do their thing. If you get too deep into this, it's just gonna become so much work. On the village end, I think we gotta think about our staff and organizing stuff and to where if we limit it to 3, maybe 4 nights, if one of them's over the 4th or whatever, keep it simple. But I would maybe, rather than sponsoring a band, what if the village paid for the sound guide and you include the 3 nights or whatever where you would need sound and lighting for your summer concert series? And you just say, look, for the summer concert series, the village of Beecher is gonna get, you know, the village is gonna take care of a sound guy in that. You know, give us a price for the fest in these 3 other nights or whatever it may be, 4 other nights, and you're our sound guy for
The whole season.
the whole season.
Yeah.
With the 4th of July in there, and maybe the village picks up that bill, you know, rather than sponsoring a band, because at the end of the day, I don't think the whole purpose of this is, you know, big banners and brought to you by the village of Beecher. This is just something that the village is doing as part of our thing to like Ben said it perfect, is just to bring the community together. I don't think we're looking to draw, you know, thousands of people from other towns to our park and, you know, to hear, you know what I mean? Like, this is supposed to be for the residents.
It's Will County.
Yeah, it's fine.
So,
Yeah. I think that bears
Good insight.
discussion, yeah. So, we can talk and see when, maybe after, you know, that meeting you guys have this
Yeah.
week, and then we can set up something, to have maybe a joint committee meeting, is that what we would call it technically?
I think so.
Would it be Parks and then
Yep.
Relations, those 2?
Yep.
There you go. Sounds good.
And anyone else who wants to get involved in it, but those would be the 2 committees.
Going down.
Post the meeting and,
I'll let you be the honorary chairman of the first meeting, Ben, so you post it. Give me some dates and times.
Okay.
To spit out.
All right,
I don't wanna wait till
Don't
spring.
tie yourself to that time if you think you need.
Think you need more?
Bucks more, a few bucks less. I mean,
okay,
I think the most important thing is not necessarily to have, because we haven't done the budget yet, right? But I would think that the best thing for the committee to do is say, okay, if this is what the board wants, and I think the entire board is on board with this, right? For you guys to meet and say, okay, here's what it's gonna take. I think Bob, you know, I think it should be close to that. I don't think you're,
Well, that
Off
10,000,
anything, but-
we came up in strategic planning and talked about it early on, and that
Yeah.
was the number I heard was 10, and that's what I put.
yeah, that's just a round spitball number, but I think that's one
It's
of the
doable,
first
I
things
think,
that the
yeah.
committee should do
Especially,
is say, okay, this is what we wanna do, and here's what, you know what I mean?
This
And
is-
then tie some numbers to what you
Cause
wanna
this
do,
is
but-
feasible, with looking at the bands that kind of Ben and me looked at
Mhm.
leading up to that first concert. It is feasible to do like a 4-day, like you're talking about, where there's 4 majors and then a couple minor ones.
Get
It's
to a
feasible.
first draft is what, February?
What, of the village budget?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I'm pushing to get some
Yeah, yeah,
answers
yeah, no,
on
I
So
it.
then let's,
Numbers I
it's
don't have.
coming.
and that's the
Yeah.
thing too, if we use more, if we use local acts and stuff like that, a lot of those don't require a deposit either.
Mhm.
Kinda helps along the process.
That
But I
first
do
band,
like that
that
you
first
set
band
the
you were looking
variety.
at, Ben, before we decided that one band with the
Oh, yeah,
jazz
yeah,
ensemble?
the shot section, yeah.
That would've been a great band for an afternoon concert.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree.
well, I mean, I don't think you tie yourself to Saturday night. If you do the smaller ones, like John said,
Oh,
like
yeah.
Thursday or like a Sunday, do the more relaxed one, maybe an afternoon or something. But I
Absolutely.
mean, if you do 5 dates,
But if we
$2,000 a date, maybe some little lesser ones.
Yeah. If we do, but like if we do like 3 or 4 major shows, let's set those to those major shows are gonna be on this night. of, for this month, kind of deal.
It's gonna be
Does
like
that sound like a good
Saturday
idea?
with the rain date this, or you just, it's rain or shine that day?
Or
You
some,
guys-
most
you
of
guys
these
can figure it
bands
out.
seem like they would
You
do
guys
rain
can figure that out.
dates.
Yeah,
Rain
I
dates are tough, because
Most-
the bands could be wrecked on their rain dates.
Some of, when we reached out to like some of these bands, they agreed to do, if a rain date's needed, like the following, now it might be a Sunday instead of a Saturday, cause they might be booked, but if you need a rain date for an
Yeah.
outdoor concert,
I mean, we'll probably have to talk that through with each individual band,
Exactly.
based on the dates. But I personally like that, because I mean, like, rain or shine, I think when we get to the execution of it, it's gonna be real difficult. I mean, you got a band out there, they got electronics, expensive instruments, people aren't gonna necessarily wanna sit in the rain. So, it'd be nice to be able to provide them with a good experience.
All right,
So, that concludes my report.
all right. Any old business to come before the board? Any new business to come before the board? I would like a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss personnel. If someone would make that motion?
I'll make a motion to go into executive session for personnel.
Okay.
Be more specific than personnel.
To discuss the police chief,
Contract with police.
contract police chief, yeah. There's a motion on the floor, is there a second?
Second.
3 seconds. There's a motion and a second, roll